How to follow a spiritual friend.
As there's a saying, without the guru or without the guru in one's life, there wasn't a notion of enlightenment or someone being enlightened. So, as in the Vajrayana tradition, guru is the source of blessings. Yidam is the source of accomplishments, and Dakini is the source of activity. So the guru principle here is something that we all have to understand, and we all have to know how to cultivate a deep, profound, meaningful relationship. Now, of course, everything is going to be said here, but to just say a few things that's going to come up here as an essence. As I said, deep, profound, meaningful relation with the Guru depends upon two aspects of our capacity of mind. First capacity of our mind is how open we can stay. Towards the words of the Guru and towards the teachings of the Guru gives us, or towards just the presence of the Guru. In our relation with the Guru 101, or just in the mind. If there's a sense of not openness and being able to stay open, there's already some preconceived notions of how the Guru is supposed to be or cater to you and your needs. It often doesn't turn out good. Neither for the Guru or nor for the students. The capacity of being able to stay open in receiving the teachings in traditional manners and traditional methods of the hearing wisdom, and then being trained in the contemplative wisdom, and then being trained in the meditative wisdom, these three wisdoms. That are so much as an essential mechanism of transforming our mind. Then, on top of it, other methods that is specifically, as the Guru sees it is needed in the individual students' makeup of the mind, and to help the makeup of the individual student's mind to be transformed. Not this three traditional methods doesn't work, but sometimes it's required, additional methods. So a lot of the times the teachings can take place just in interactions, or just teachings can take place in giving some specific guidance and specific instructions. So how one can stay open in that. And sometimes here, as it is said by the Atisha, pointing out to one's own hidden faults and pointing out to one's own different unconscious level of ignorance and the patterns of wrongdoings that is just neither supportive for one's spiritual path nor supportive for one's own well-being in a day-to-day life. Staying open in all of this with some trust, some level of faith that this is, at least to say, is not done with some kind of a malicious intention to hurt you, or intention to sort of discriminate you. There is something maybe there that one can actually learn. That level of a faith and trust, I think it's very important in the teachings. Now that level of then trust or faith translating into staying open, minded, with a warmth feeling being generated, a sense of appreciation being generated. In just any time when one actually thinks of the Guru, or when one any time thinks of the kindness of the Guru, either in the day-to-day life or in the practice time, in the practice sessions, it's very important. Otherwise, there's not going to be a Guru principle in the practice life. Where does this come from? Who brings this to you? What's the source of the blessing? There's none of that is going to be present. It's going to be like somebody trying to do this all on one's own. Somebody is trying to do this all as a sort of, reading a manual script and do it yourself, so to speak. Even if there is an instructor, there has to be some of that even towards the instructor, let alone in the Guru principle, as to have a source of blessing in one's life. So I think having some openness in this way and keeping some openness in one's mind, rather than having to shut down one's mind whenever when one has to sort of have that source of the blessing in one's life. Because that source of blessing maybe perhaps is seen or neither regarded as an important factor in one's spiritual growth. It's clearly one's ego discomfort. So the capacity of staying one's mind open has to be ability to work. Then with the second, as I said, capacity or ability of the mind, it leads to the second capacity or ability of the mind, which is to acknowledge that on one's own, to become a conscious of all one's ego and ego's sort of grip on us. In the various ways that we have habituated ourselves to protect our own egos and ego's agendas. And having all of those have led us to suffering and source of suffering. So the spiritual path here is to sort of work against that. It's not to reinforce that. To reinforce that with a spiritual practice or path becomes a spiritual materialism. But the spiritual path of a genuine tradition has to happen from within one's mind to work against this. So there has to be some acknowledgement that this is the sort of a foundation, or this is the ground where we are seeking the spiritual friend as to help us, as to guide us, as to sort of source of a blessing or source of example to get ourselves beyond or get ourselves free from this. So there has to be some capacity. There has to be some ability, or at least being interested to challenge oneself to go against one's own ego. Strong grip on ourselves and strong sense of having a hold on ourselves and strong sense of always trying to manipulate everything and anything that we do by the ego agendas. So there has to be some sense of a renunciation, acknowledgement and renunciation there. And then with this, as the Guru principle, who has even more than all the 1,000 Buddhas of this eon, has shown us a great kindness. All the 1,000 Buddhas have came and gone and will come, but we do not have meetings with them. And the chances of our meetings with them is somehow not possible. But with the meeting with the Guru, and the Guru guiding us in the spiritual path, and particularly in this tradition that we all belong to, has the possibility to do the same and provide the same and benefit the same and bring us the same outcome as meeting the Buddhas. Even we meet the Buddhas, dowe dunga sake sammi jung. Nichi tokwa shenla po men ju. Chunyi denpa tongwe tawar ju. It's not like they can sweep away with a hand one's suffering or transfer some realization from outside and give it to you without the self-realization. Only through the self-realization one can gain the liberation, as the Buddha himself have said. So, the possibility of the self-realization, and through the self-realization to purify the obscurations of the mind, and to understand the nature, and to understand the qualities of this incredible enlightened nature, enlightened essence that is in all of us as a sentient being. So there is that kindness of the teacher. So, from the guru, so there has to be some sense of, as I said earlier, either through the sort of like surrendering of this sense of self and clinging to the self in the devotion through the methods of the devotion being applied upon one's mind and upon one's deeper level of mind, that also that in the visual core level, how we cling to ourselves, that, as I was saying last night, the sense of, however, the environment warms up or our mind gets moved and touched, still underneath, in deep down, holding on to oneself. This sense of holding on to oneself is like a pebble, icy pebble that remains there, in charge, in control. So we have the opportunity in this Guru principle to surrender that or to melt that, clinging to the self. And as we let go of that, that experience provides us a deep sense of peace. Before that, that peace is not known. Before that, that peace is only imagined. After that, there is a sense of experience of that peace, and that experience of peace becomes somewhat of a reference point of how one can let go of one's ego altogether and find that peace, which was blocked by the ego clinging. Prior to that, there's a lot of fear. A lot of fear to lose. But in reality, taking that chance and surrendering, one loses nothing but gains that peace and gains that experience of freedom, gains that experience of knowledge, how one can actually live a life without that such a strong sense of self being always present. Now with this, then the realization of the Vajra nature is very simple. With this, then also training in the Bodhicitta practice is very simple and straightforward. In the absolute Bodhicitta, it's very simple, straightforward to have that self-realization. In the relative Bodhicitta, it's very simple and straightforward to know how to relate. Once you have learned how to relate in that way, with a one person as a reference, it's very simple and easy to learn how to do that. So in all one's activities of the spiritual path and practice, and particularly in the activities of Bodhicitta training, Lojong. Until that point, that Dakjinzing has always been the obstruction for that peace, and to have anything as a relative Bodhicitta or absolute Bodhicitta being a genuine, there's a sense of doubt whether you are doing this as a really genuinely, with no self-importance, or these are all being done by the self-importance. Since our level of mindfulness and awareness is very often weak, and discriminating intelligence is often very weak in the beginning, therefore, to see things clear or to know things clear becomes difficult. But when one is able to do that, so the level of the mindfulness and level of the discriminative awareness becomes very stronger and clear as well. Hence, in this way, as there's a saying, a boulder rolls down and you think it will stop, and it'll stop, but it rolls all the way down. It doesn't stop. So as like that, you think, through the blessing of the Guru, you will not be liberated. You will not be liberated. There's no way that you could be liberated. There's no way that you could be liberated. There's no way that you could be penetrated. There's no way that you could actually be able to purify your own mind and have the self-realization. But nonetheless, you do have that purification and the self-realization. So in this way, then, once really the beginning of that whole spiritual path, whether it's in the conceptual level of training oneself in the lojong or the mind training, or in the absolute, the realization of the Buddha nature through the jnana, all becomes a natural process. And then from that point, of course, there's going to be a sense of a contextual self with the Guru, or in relation to the Guru, or in relation to the mother sentient beings, or in relation to everyone. But there's no going to be that sense of desperately holding on to oneself, needing to hold on to oneself, as a child who doesn't know how to swim and is about to be thrown into a swimming pool, holds on to the railing so desperately. It's going to be like being able to learn how to swim and enjoy swimming in any and every cases of spiritual practice and path. So this is the very fundamental aspect of the Guru Yoga, or the how to relate to the Guru. So in this way, even if one is not able to make at once, in a first year, all the progress that there needs to be made as a mandatory or some kind of an obligation, over the time in one's Guru Yoga practice, one is able to do that. So it's very important. Otherwise, as you will hear and read it here, while the Guru is here, there's not any kind of a serious of a devotion. But when the Guru passes away and you put in a picture of the Guru in the front and think of that as some source of blessing, is not going to actually have the effect of the transformation as it says in the Tantra. That really becomes true. So this kind of an opportunity is very rare. And one has to recognize this kind of an opportunity and the karma that presents itself this to you. It's not through the solicitation, and it's not through some kind of a seduction to become student or disciple. Through one's own good karma, it presents to oneself, and one has to rise to the occasion to acknowledge that and to be able to sort of make that progress that one is able to make. Like a Mila is able to make that progress with the Marpa, and the Naropa is able to make that progress with the Tilopa. And as all of the gurus who have ever had any genuine realizations, they had their own gurus that they had to actually do a Guru Yoga practice. And it goes on. Whether actually Guru is living and here, or whether actually Guru passes away in the Nirvana, it's an ongoing process. It's ongoing, conviction that has to grow inside, stronger and stronger and stronger, and clear and clear and clear, and much more, really, a meaningful, deeper, meaningful relation has to come out of this. Basically, as in a Vajrayana practitioner or as in a practitioner of spiritual path of any genuine tradition, there is no greater and more meaningful and therefore important relation in one's life than one's relation with a spiritual friend or the Guru principle. We can fool our lovers, we can fool our spouses, we can fool anyone and everyone, saying that you are the most important person in my life. But in reality, in deep down, as in the Vajrayana tradition, there is no more important person, figuratively speaking, than the Guru in one's life. And if that is not the case, then the yidam also becomes not available. Dakini principle also becomes not available. Dharma protector also becomes not available in one's life. So all three roots depends upon the Guru principle. Any accomplishments that one can have in the generations and the accomplishment phase has to come from the Guru principle as the source. So in that way, it is really critical to take time to contemplate on this rather than sort of feel obliged, pressured, or feel a sense of inadequacy and feeling bad and stuck. It takes lifelong to sort of move forward. It took me a long, long time to move forward in a very serious and clear and confident way. So of course, it's going to take a lot. But nonetheless, having some direction in that way, as we do our best to progress in the spiritual path, and then as one actually becomes more and more confident in this whole, everything is affected by this. Everything is affected by this, not only in this life, but in the intermediate state. As the Kongtrül Rinpoche says here, it's not that the guru, the individual, the person comes and rescues you in the intermediate state. It's just that relation. It's just that one relating to the Guru principle and the Guru principle serving in that way as a source of blessing, and Guru principle here as a gatherer of all the blessings of the all three times Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. To penetrate one's deluded mind, because when any time anyone has any sort of like a possibility to awake, that chances is not missed by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the three times, and way to sort of manifest that and their blessings is through the Guru principle. As the Buddha himself have said, in the future, Ananda, I will be coming to you as a spiritual friend. So, we can see the Buddha as the spiritual friend. And so as also Guru Rinpoche have said that, Bimala have said that. We do not have the opportunity to see directly Buddha or Guru Rinpoche or Bimala, but we can often actually, when we do the practices of, Guru Yoga of the Guru Rinpoche or Guru Yoga of the Bimala, we see the Guru quite often, most of the other times. And that's the sign how they are to manifest. Even they are to manifest, how are we going to recognize them? What do they look like? How are we going to actually have any kind of a sense of knowing who they are? But when one actually has a dream or visions or anything like that with one's Guru, one knows that this is the blessing of the Guru Rinpoche, or this is the blessing of the Bimala, or this is the blessing of the Yidam, or this is the blessing of the Dakini, or this is the blessing of the practices that we are doing, manifesting in one's life. And one might think, oh, that's not so much of a significant, because we see the Guru always and every day. But that's just one's attitude and one's relation of looking at the Guru, because one is actually in every day with the Guru, Nyamdo, therefore seeing the Guru as an equal to you. And that is an era of one's own practice mind of the Guru Yoga. As a Rinzi Jigme Lingpa have said, Sanje Kundu Jungo, Kadin Jinji Lama Tambala, Nyamdo Jumiri Zung, Lodapani. Sanjingusu Thoma Shoji, embodiment of all the Buddhas of the three times, may I not see him or her as an equal to myself because I have that opportunity to see him or her every day. And therefore able to, not progress. May I be able to see him or her, as the true embodiment of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And if one has that kind of an attitude, then that, to that person, that vision is much more important than sort of like, popping a Guru Rinpoche out of your dream, like, what you see in the Tanka or Bimala popping out in your dream as what you see in the Tanka. This is much more important. And so as also all of this leading to a deeper level of conviction and confidence in one's own nature. It has to lead to deeper level of purification and deeper level of conviction and confidence in one's own nature as a inseparable from the Guru and non-dual. Nature as the nature of all Tathagatas. That self-confidence, self-conviction, self-realization through the practice of the Guru Yoga, through the practice of the Yidam, generation yoga, or accomplishment yoga practice. Ultimately, that self-realization, that conviction, that confidence is what to become of your enlightenment. Enlightenment cannot come from outside. Enlightenment has to come from within in this way, to have that deep sense of purification of the ordinary perception and ordinary mindsets. And the self-realization of the Vajra nature and self-realization with the deep conviction, neshe that is not going to be ever changed as what that is. And a confidence that that is the nature of all the Tathagatas. So, any of this depends upon movement in this way from the devotion to self-realization, from self-realization to self-confidence. So in that way, one can actually have, as I said, transformation and the enlightenment of this very ordinary mind that we have not ever we have not have the chance or the opportunity or been able to do so for countless of lifetimes, countless of kalpas lifetimes, to be done here, as you read it in the Hunundo, in the beginning of the Hunundo, in the praise of the Guru. So in that way, one is to have, for the countless eons of kalpas, what I have not been able to accomplish in an instinct, with a great, deep devotion, what comes to be clear. In my own experience, I praise the Vajra Guru, as it says, as you will be reading that, these are all true. These are not some hearsay, or these are not some, stories. These are said with the people who have had that kind of a self-realization and conviction and the self-confidence. So in this way, then one can actually, appreciate these stories that we read here in the words of my perfect teacher, like Naropa, how seeks out Tilopa, as how significant that is, that endeavor is, or how Mila seeks out Marpa, and how significant that endeavor is. We wouldn't see Naropa or Nada Mila as a sort of some idiot who sort of, surrenders oneself for abuse or for some crazy man. I'm sure Naropa and Miller both, from their ego tendencies, have had sometimes the similar tendencies as we have. It is to surrender that is like a capacitating yourself. So it's the kind of most stupid and therefore the idiot thing that one can do. There's that feeling sometimes. So I'm sure they have, from the ego's point of view, that experiences as well. But nonetheless, with the critical intelligence working against that, becoming the core aspect of themselves, they were able to work against that. And therefore, they are able to achieve through the devotion, only through the devotion. That's only possible to do it so, not through intellect. So, these are just general teachings of the, Guru Yoga, and general principles of how the Guru Yoga practice works. General kind of understanding that the practitioners must have, including Guru himself or Guru herself. So it's not like you give these instructions to your students as a guru, but you don't abide in that principle yourself and be a hypocrite. As I said, this is a lifelong training and lifelong process. And you get, as you are able to make the progress in that way, the same amount of the result. And if not in this life, if not in, intermediate state, it goes on. One of the great thing about the bodhisattvahood is that even if you hurt the bodhisattvas makes that hurt or harm in return as a beneficiary for you in the end. So if someone hurts or someone harms the bodhisattvas, instead of having a grudge or revenge, cultivates that connection as to fruit in the future lives, as in a return, a benefit to the person. So if any connection is being made in the positive, then we don't have to, say anything about that. So it goes on. And it goes on with the support of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas' blessings as well. So with this then, I'm going to get into the text itself.